Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at one of the best Pokemon in the Retro Cup, Aurorus. There are no steel types and barely any ground types, so it really only has to be afraid of water and fighting, which is why I would suggest you use it with Cresselia and Altaria, because that's way more balanced than this team you're seeing right here, and also I've been seeing other people have a lot of success with it. I, however, have been running into a lot of dragons and a lot of psychic types, so I think Frostless works better around my elo. However, this is a lot less balanced and it's ABA weak to Lanturn, so Altaria is better overall, especially if you're running into a lot of Lanturns. This team, however, did work very well for me. I got almost up to Legend, so let's take a look at the battles. Going into the first game, we lead into a Toxicroak. A pretty good lead for Aurorus, but not the best lead in the world. Overall, a good lead. So they swap into a Deoxys, we counter swap Frostless, and then we just start powder snowing away. They go for a move after 8, meaning they are at the Thunderbolt, takes 8 for the Thunderbolt, but they actually don't run Thunderbolt, they run Rock Slide. They might be running both, but they go for the Rock Slide, so it's 7 and then 6, but they might also be using Psycho Boost, so go for the Shadow Ball on the CMP on a potential Psycho Boost, which is also always 5, and then they overfarm a little bit before going for another move, which I think, if I remember correctly, is another Rock Slide. Also, Shadow Ball does about 71%, so would have one-shot them from that range. And then we go up 2-5 once again to try and CMP them on a potential Psycho Boost once again. And then we just take them out with the Shadow Ball instead. I don't think an Avalanche would have been enough from that range. It definitely wouldn't. But we just about have enough health to get to another Shadow Ball on this Toxicroak, which would do quite a bit of damage. And then a bit of an important detail. It might not seem important in this match specifically, but just an important thing to be aware of. They had a, not a good matchup, but a pretty decent matchup in the lead, but they swapped into a hard counter. If they had a soft counter in the back, they would have probably swapped into their soft counter most of the time. If they had something weak against Aurorus in the back, they would have probably stayed in with Toxicroaks. And because they swapped into a hard counter, they probably have something else very good against Aurorus in the back most of the time. So it is a little bit tempting to bring in the Cresselia to catch all of this energy or make them expend energy on Cresselia instead of Aurorus, because it would do a lot less damage, but I'm expecting them to be weak or to be strong against Aurorus in the back. So I bring my Aurorus in, take the Brine after 8, and then it's 8-7-7-7 for the Brines, so we can go for the CMP on this Weather Ball. It was a little bit tempting to catch the Brine on Cresselia and save the energy on Aurorus, but Aurorus is boosted and we might be able to land a boosted Weather Ball on whatever they have in the back. It is a Medicham, so we can just bring in the Cresselia, and my opponent realizes their Medicham is not taking out a Cresselia, so they concede the match. Next game, lead into the Core Breaker, Lanturn. The way I play this is I bring in Cresselia, and then I just hope that I can somehow get a shield advantage or an energy advantage. I don't want to play for a switch here, of course, because my Pokemon, I have no Pokemon in the back that can really deal with it, but up energy or up shields, I might be able to deal with it. I wouldn't recommend using an ABA weak to Lanturn team if you're seeing a lot of Lanturns. I haven't been seeing a lot of them, which is why I've done it. But yeah, now they have a Frostless. They went for a Surf before dipping to put me into a Shadow Ball range with Frostless, or put me into Powder Snow plus Shadow Ball range, which is a good play. And then I go for a Grass Knot the first time around. You want to go Moonblast against Frostless. I looked this up afterwards, but yeah, I go for the Grass Knot here to hopefully force the second shield to grab a shield advantage, but they don't shield it. But this just brings them into farm range to where I can farm them down. So now I pretty much just have to hope that they're weak to ice in the back, and that by bringing in my own Frostless here, I force them to bring in Lanturn onto the Frostless, so that I can have the Lanturn up against the Frostless that already has energy. They unfortunately make it to another Avalanche on Frostless, but it doesn't do that much damage. And my opponent does bring in the Lanturn against Frostless. Now Aurorus doesn't have to see it. Very nice. They go for move after 5. They did expend all their energy earlier, so this should just be a Surf, and we can tank it. And then they bring in a Dugong, so I farm up a little bit of energy with Frostless, or quite a lot, and then I bring in Aurorus, hoping that one Meteor Beam would be enough to take out this Dugong. They have made one very silly bait in the Avalanche earlier, so I thought they might go for another silly bait with the Icy Wind. They don't, they go for the Drill Run, does big damage, but we make it to the Meteor Beam, and it does massive damage on the Dugong. Frostless is too low for me to be able to rely on it, so I have to shield this move with Aurorus, although I am expecting the bait with an Icy Wind, which is very unfortunate. But then we can farm the Dugong all the way down, come out with a lot of move, or a lot of energy, and then go for another boosted Meteor Beam on the Lanturn, which does massive damage. Now the Lanturn is forced to expend energy or take another move from this Aurorus, so they have to expend all their energy. And if you remember, I have a lot of energy on my Frostless, And an Avalanche does, I think, about 26% to a Lanturn. So we can just go for the Avalanche. If they had shielded the first one, we could have gone for the second one to take them out. Next game, lead into a Frostlass. In this matchup, you just want to go straight Media Beam, but they swap into a Regirock. You will be able to win all even shield straight Media Beam against Frostlass. Swap into Regirock. They go up to 16 turns, and then they go for the Zap Cannon. Yes, that's right. This is the same Regirock that I faced yesterday as well. Go for the Grass Knot. It takes the equivalent of 8 Psycho Cuts for the Zap Cannon and the equivalent of 5.5 Psycho Cuts for the Grass Knot, so they will be able to outpace me. Looking at how much damage the Zap Cannon did, I'm hoping I can live a Stone Edge, but I can't. So I go down with all that energy, but they did throw it immediately if I counted correctly, so there should be 5.5 Powder Snows away from the next one, so we can bring in the Aurorus, overfarm a little bit, and then go for this Weather Ball. I don't want to take a move on my Aurorus from this thing, that would hurt a lot. And then I bring in a Medicham, we bring in Frostlass, they bring in their own Frostlass, but we are ahead on energy. But this is still not a comfortable matchup. It is a very uncomfortable bait game. I go for the bait the first time around. My opponent does decide to shield it. Very nice. When you have 2 shields in this situation, people, like when they have a Frostlass, they tend to like to bait. So I call it. It hurts my stomach to call that bait, but we did call it correctly. It is just the Avalanche. But at this point, we of course have to start shielding Avalanches anyways. So we go up to right before they get to another Avalanche. It is 665 for the Frostlass, and then we go for the Shadow Ball with Frostlass, which would KO, but they shield it, and then they overfarm a little bit, I think to 7, so there should be 2 over, and then it's 6 for the next one, so there should be 4 away from the next one. I'm not anticipating they're going to try to catch on Medicham, so I can just go straight for it right before they get to another Avalanche. And now, can we get to another Shadow Ball on this Medicham? We are quite close. I realize we can barely not get there, so I have to settle for the Avalanche on this Medicham, but this Medicham now has energy. I think it was the correct call that we couldn't get it to that Shadow Ball. The Medicham gets to a Psychic. Now the question is, does this do enough damage to where I can't get to 2 Weather Balls? I think it does. Yeah, we're not going to be able to get 2 moves off because this counter is going to KO, so go for the Media Beam, which does more damage. And the Medicham lives on 1 HP, and that is a heartbreaking loss. Next game, lead into a Lickitung. This is where we want to see it. The team is also kind of weak to Lickitung. They swap into a Buzzwole. I don't really want to take the lunges on Cresselia. Cresselia actually loses the 0 shields to Buzzwole if the Buzzwole gets 2 counters head start. So bring in my Frostlass. I didn't know that in the game. I knew that like after looking it up. I hadn't been looking up Buzzwole's matchups all that much, not gonna lie. Go for the Shadow Ball right before they get to another one. It is 7-6 for the lunges and then 6-6-6-5 for the superpowers, which can be very confusing if they start to throw different moves at different times. They go for the lunge, but now we can't go up to right before they get to another one, and then go for the Avalanche. We do have another one stored as well, but we do lose CMP if they shield it. They don't shield it, so we can't get to another Avalanche. This won't do all that much damage because we are double debuffed. But it's nice chip on the Lickitung. Of course, I want to keep switch advantage, so I bring in the Aurorus afterwards, and they bring in a Shadow Machamp. We bring in the Cresselia quick enough so that they won't be able to outpace to a payback before we get to a Moonblast. This was only 8 counters. It takes 9 for the payback and 7 for the Rock Slide for the first Rock Slide, and then 6 for the next one. So we can go up to right before they get to another Rock Slide and then go for the Moonblast. A Grass Knot does about 54%, maybe it would have been enough, but I wanted to make sure, so I went for the Moonblast. And then I'm trying to gauge how many moves I can get to by looking at the lick damage. I think I can get to 2 Moonblasts here, so I go for the first one. Does about half of what the Lickitung has remaining. We get the attack drop, I don't think it mattered. We can get to another Moonblast. This will either grab the shield or put them very low. It puts them very low, and now we can just bring in Aurorus to farm them down. A Power Whip would not have been enough to take out Aurorus at that point. So we win that game. Next game lead into an Altaria. Very good lead, of course. But then they swap into a Jellicent, another Pokemon that I haven't been seeing a lot, which is why I feel okay using this team. But another Pokemon that is the reason why this team is probably not the best team in the world. I let the first Surf go because I don't really have a response, and then get off this Media Beam and then just basically sacrifice a Cresselia, which is like my emergency plan. When I don't know what to do with this team, I just try and save as much energy as possible and health on my Aurorus and Frostlass, and then just sacrifice the Cresselia. They make it to a Shadow Ball. I don't really want to let them get to another Surf, so I'd go for the Grass Knot right before they get there. And this will take out the Jellicent, and we still have just about enough health on the Cresselia to where we can get 2 Moonblast. I go 1 over just in case I get the attack drop. I want to get it as late as possible to give them as little farm as possible but then they shield the Altaria. I'm thinking the opponent probably thinks that I have something weak to Altaria in the back, so they are saving their Altaria, expending 2 shields on it, knowing they can Dragon Breath down my Aurorus, but I'm not weak to Altaria in the back. I think that was a pretty good play by the opponent, to realize that I might be very weak to Altaria, but no, I'm not. And then, actually quite fun detail here, they were at the back-to-back Sky Attack, so I waited 1 turn to see if they were still in there, and no, they swapped into Lanturn, so we can go for the Shadow Bolt instead of the Avalanche. I wanted to go for the CMP if they were still in there. And now they can go up to 7 sparks, I think, if I counted correctly here. I counted correctly in the game, I'm pretty sure. And then they go for a Thunderbolt, which is shield up. I thought it would make a lot of sense for them to go for the Thunderbolt here, because that would be enough to take me out with the spark damage as well. We go for the Shadow Ball, loading up 200 energy because the Altaria also has a move. We get to the Avalanche on the Altaria as well, which is very nice, very good energy management. I could overfarm perfectly there, because even if they go for a Surf, it wouldn't take out my Frostlass, so I felt comfortable enough to just go up to as they got to the Thunderbolt, or right before they got there, because I got 200 energy, and then just take them out. Next game, lead into another Lickitung. Not like an amazing lead for Aurorus, but this is definitely where we want to see it. It takes the equivalent of 8.5 Powder Snows for the Lickitung to get to a Power Whip, so we can go for this like shielded up and then go for a Meteor Beam, which is not shielded, and then we can overfarm quite a lot. It's 8.5 for the first 2 Power Whips and then 8 for the third one, so we can overfarm quite a lot and then go for another Weather Ball. And if I shield another Power Whip here, I'm thinking that I can come out of this matchup with a lot of HP, and they have to swap out or let me farm them down after this, and I don't think they're baiting. They go for another Power Whip, then bring in Lanturn, so farm up a lot of energy on Aurorus, and then bring in Cresselia to catch the Surf after 5. And now we can, this is a pretty comfortable matchup for Cresselia, of course. If they swap in a Lanturn, as in save swap it, we have a pretty good response in the Cresselia. It's just a problem on the lead, or if they save it in the back and we expend the Cresselia somewhere else. They go for a Thunderbolt after 7, it's always 7. And now we can go for a Grass Knot, but they will be able to outpace to a Surf, or they will get there at the same time on the CMP here, so just let it go. And then I think I go for a very, very cheeky play. If I pulled this off correctly, it would have been very, very nice. Because I let them get to another Spark before going for this Grass Knot. So this Spark going through will KO my Cresselia, meaning they're still switch lock with their Lanturn. If I can undercharge this Grass Knot, I will be able to bring in something else on their switch lock Lanturn, which doesn't have a lot of energy. So I will be able to just farm them down and get ahead on energy, which is what I try to do, which is why I let them get off another Spark to let this Spark take me out. But I don't undercharge it correctly. It would have been very nice, but now they bring in a Frostlass. And they're ahead on energy, meaning I simply cannot bring in my own Frostlass. I look at the energy, I can't make it to 2 Meteor Beams either before they get to a Shadow Ball, so I have to go for the bait. Go for the Weather Ball bait, and then I wait a turn to make sure I throw this Meteor Beam in the middle of their Powder Snow, so it's not caught on Lickitung, and it one-shots the Frostlass, and then they bring in a Lickitung, and they simply don't have enough health to do anything. Next game, lead into Galvantula. Also a pretty neutral lead, not a very comfortable. Of course, Meteor Beam would just absolutely shred this Galvantula. We can take 1 lunge, which I assume is what they're going to throw. And then we can overfarm a little bit and go for a Weather Ball bait. Because Galvantulas like to shield, so I just go for the bait. And there's always 3 for the lunge / dish slash, so they will be able to make it before I get to another move. And then I think I make a bit of a misplay, because I panic when I see this confusion damage. I throw in really bad timing. I should have saved this energy because I'm double debuffed. So this is really not like doing a lot of damage, but I just don't have a very good response to the Oranguru. So I kind of didn't really know what to do. It takes 4 for the foul plays and then 6, 5, 5 for the potential future side. So they go for a move after 4, which is only the foul play, which is of course the move you're gonna want to go for. And then I go up to right before they get to another one and go for the Moonblast, not knowing how much damage this would do, hoping it would take them out, but it just about doesn't. It only does about 36%, whereas the Grass Knot would do about 30%, looking at it afterwards. But now we can farm the Oranguru all the way down. The Galvantula is dry, so if they bring it in, we can go for 1 more Psycho God and then go for the Moonblast, which will either grab the shield or take them out. It grabs the shield, so now we can bring in Frostlass, and this is a bit of a tricky spot. If they have charge move pressure in the back, I don't want to shield this, as if they have a Aurorus or something like that. If they have fast move pressure in the back, I really wanted to shield it. They have fast move pressure in the back. I realize I'm not going to be able to make it to 2 avalanches, so I just have to go for the Shadow Ball, hope it's enough to take out the Kingdra. It's not anywhere near enough because I needed energy, or I needed health on my Froslass to be able to handle the Galvantula afterwards, so I needed to throw it immediately. But that is a good game. Next game, lead into Deoxys, very bad lead, so we swap into Cresselia. But with a 2 Psycho Cuts advantage, Cresselia can actually win this in the Zero Shields if you go 2 Moonblast and then a Grass Knot. 3 Grass Knots is not enough. It depends on the IVs on the Lickitung, whether 2 Grass Knots plus a Moonblast is enough. The safe play is just to go for 2 Moonblasts and then a Grass Knot. Of course, we would go for the Moonblast before the Grass Knot, just in case we get the attack debuff. Go for the second Moonblast, and now we will be able to get to another Grass Knot before they get to another Body Slam. Takes the equivalent of 6 for the first 2 Body Slams, 6 huge Psycho Cuts, and then 5.5 for the third Body Slam for Lickitung. So we can get it to another Grass Knot to either take them out and get switch advantage, or grab a shield advantage for Froslass, which is very nice. Now the plan is, if we lose the lead and lose the save swap or the swap in, just get a shield advantage for Froslass, get some sort of advantage for Froslass, completely sack the Aurorus, and then just try and win with Froslass. That is basically the plan with this team. You can also do something similar with Altaria, I think, as we go for the full farm down with Aurorus. I'm thinking last second that if I get off this Meteor Beam, I will leave my Aurorus dry, meaning I can use it as a sack swap later on. So I get rid of all the energy, and then I bring in Froslass. They go for a move right away after only 5 counters, because they did 2 earlier. So this is only a Psycho Boost, which I can take, not comfortably, hoping they don't have fast move pressure in the back again. And then they bring in a Cresselia. They're running ABA Psychic, which is something Froslass is very happy to see. We go for the Shadow Ball, does big damage onto the Cresselia, and now of course we have to start shielding these moves. They go for the Moonblast, making me think, if they had Grass Knot, they would probably go for it. So I want to CMP them after 7, which it would be the Moonblast, but then they go for a move after 6, meaning they actually do have Grass Knot. I don't really know why they would want to go for the Moonblast, but because we went for the farm down, we will come out with a lot of energy, and the Deoxys is energy dry, and Avalanche would be enough to take it out from this range. It does about 39%, but I just wanted to make absolutely sure, knowing that the Deoxys was dry, I just wanted to make absolutely sure that I could devastate this Deoxys with a Shadow Ball, and that is a good sweep by Froslass. Very nice. As we can see, the win animation. Next game, lead into another very bad lead with Medicham. Once again, same game plan. Bring in Cresselia, either get switch advantage to get Froslass onto the Medicham, or get a shield advantage for Froslass. Once again, they bring in a Froslass. This time I have learned from earlier, so go for the Moonblast instead, which does about half of Froslass health. So now we can start to threaten the shields a lot more with Cresselia. And the very nice thing with Cresselia save swap, it can live a Shadow Ball from Froslass, so we will be able to make it to another Moonblast to either grab switch advantage or a shield advantage. So they shield the Moonblast, and now we could just have shield advantage for Froslass. Bringing the Aurorus once again to sacrifice it. They will be able to make it to a Shadow Ball, and then I think they're quite close to another move because they overfarmed quite a lot against the Cresselia. So go for the Weather Ball before they get to another move, and this should take out the Froslass. And now of course we can just swap in the Froslass immediately. Don't want to stay in against the Medicham. They did do 2 counters before, and it takes 8 for the Psychic. So they go up to the Psychic, and at this point we just kind of have to start shielding. The opponent does full send the Psychic. It would do a lot of damage, and then they bring in an Aurorus. It takes 8 for the Immediate Beam, 5 for the Weather Ball, and then 1 less for the second one. So they go up. After we land this Shadow Ball to do big damage, then they go up to the Meteor Beam, and looking at my energy, I just got to the Shadow Ball. If they bait me here, they will be 4 away from the Meteor Beam, meaning they will be able to outpace me before I get to 2 more moves. If they go for the Meteor Beam, I will be able to outpace them. So this is just a straight 50-50 call. Are they going for the bait or the Meteor Beam? I called it, and they go straight Meteor Beam to take out my Froslass. And there is no way in hell my Aurorus is taking out the Medicham in the back, so that is a good game. Next game, lead into a Froslass. And this time around, I do decide to bring up the shield. This is a little bit risky, because by bringing up a shield, if they swap out after taking my shield, it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to keep hold of alignment, because if they swap into, say, a Lanturn or something, and I bring a Cresselia, they have a lot more play to try and get switch advantage with their Lanturn against even a Cresselia or like in any other situation basically. So it is a little bit risky shielding this early on, but Froslass basically never baits, so I can just shield it and then go for the Meteor Beam afterwards. I'm thinking that they're probably fine with just grabbing a shield advantage on their Froslass, so they just let it go. Also, you can just go straight Meteor Beam against Froslass. And then I go for a move in the middle of their 5th rollout, but it looked like they got an entire rollout through anyways. I don't know if there was some lag there. You generally want to throw in the middle of like an uneven amount of 3-turn moves when you go for a 2-turn move. I go for a cheeky Meteor Beam in case they weren't counting correctly, because I saw the Weather Ball wasn't quite enough and maybe they wanted to let it go. And then I catch the Drillbun on Cresselia and then they bring in a Lickitung. And once again, we want to go for the Moonblast here. We didn't get quite enough of an energy head start with Cresselia, and also we did take a Drillbun before bringing in the Cresselia. But I'm looking at the Lickitung. It looks like it's a little bit lower health than the one I faced previously, so it might not be as XL as previously. So I think I might be able to go for 2 Grass Nuts here to take it out as I go for the second Grass Knot, or for the first Grass Knot, and it does just about half of what the Lickitung has remaining. But then they go for a Body Slam right before we get to another one. Very nice counting. It does about 18%. I thought maybe I could live it, but no. Now we can make it to a Weather Ball on the CMP. They overfarmed a lot with the Lickitung. And this is a CMP on the Power Whip. They shielded up and I'm like, Froslass up a shield. This is perfectly fine. The Lickitung has no energy after throwing this Power Whip, so we can just bring in the Froslass. The Dunsparce still has a little bit of energy, so they go for the Rock Slide, which is of course the move we want to shield because it's super effective. And now they should be 2 away from the next one. So we can make it to the CMP on the Avalanche, which Froslass is always going to win CMP against the very bulky, godlike Dunsparce. And then the Lickitung is simply too low to do anything, and my opponent won't allow me to BM them with a Shadow Ball. So that is a good game. And that was, I don't really know my record with this team. I was trying a few different teams last night. This was definitely the team that worked the best for me. As I say, I would recommend Altaria, but this team brought me very close to Legend and overall did very well for me. I think I gained over 100 elo with it as well. That was the last battle for today, and overall this team worked out very well for me. I would generally not recommend running such unbalanced teams, but sometimes you just find a gap in the meta and you can just pounce on it, although it does leave you open to just being completely core broken and sometimes RPS'd in some games, which is not very fun. I would recommend Altaria instead of Froslass, which is a much more balanced team. Other than that, fun fact of the day, if Lanturn no-shields the first Meteor Beam, Aurorus can win the 2 shields with 1 Powder Snow's advantage. This is IV dependent. You do need a pretty good Aurorus against a pretty good Lanturn or a really good Aurorus, but doesn't need to be that good. Other than that, if you like this video or feel like you learned something, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.